James Cameron's sci-fi classic, The Terminator, robots travel back in time from a future in which technology has decimated the planet. At a certain point, the computers become self-aware and they begin to wage war against the human race. In the film, this was said to happen at 8:11 p.m., April 19, 2011. When this time arrived, people began asking Cameron what he thought. Here is his intriguing response. With everybody going through their lives, bent over their cell phones all day long, you could argue that the machines have already won. Maybe he's right. The question that I want to consider today is this. Does life in our tech-driven age enhance or erode man's ability to live out our most important ideals and spiritual values? It is my contention that for its great power and promise, technology presents more of a challenge than an aid for us in living out the most important things in life. In this brief time that I have today, I want to zero in on some of these challenges. Challenge number 1. Technology encourages us to lead mediated lives. By almost any standard, a life that is lived in keeping with our most important human values is a life that requires us to be present in the world and present with our fellow man. However, the tragic truth is that many of us lead lives that are several steps removed from this reality. This phenomenon is most strikingly apparent in a person who is at a momentous life event, the birth of a child or the wedding of a loved one, and instead of experiencing it, watches it through their smartphone. Ironically, this very technology that is supposed to aid us connect with others actually serves to separate us from them in a very real way. The devices that are supposed to aid us in recording life end up keeping us from experiencing life in the now. In the mediated life, it's not just that we insulate ourselves behind the world, we ourselves hide behind these carefully constructed and highly edited versions of ourselves, wrapping ourselves in a cocoon of idealized images and communications. If we are honest, what was meant to be a medium of connection has become a barrier to direct contact with the real. Number 2, technology exponentially increases the temptation to live distracted and ultimately diluted lives. Some time ago, Google's chairman made the following pronouncement. Now you are never lonely, because your friends are always reachable. You're never bored because there are infinite streams of information and entertainment. This, I submit, is out of step with the truth of the human condition. In a recent article, Ethan Richardson brilliantly observes that we live under the constructed assault of connectivity and the interesting. There are simply so many potential distractions and fascinating rabbit trails to follow that our ability to attend to any one thing or even to our own thoughts is incredibly diminished. He goes on to explain that it is precisely this unending tsunami of information that produces in us the deepest kind of loneliness and a boredom, a condition in which we are no longer able to know ourselves. If he is right, indiscriminately exposing ourselves to constant distractions poses a danger. After all, never being alone with your own thoughts comes at a great price. Leaving no space for inner life can only do one thing to man's spiritual life: make it impossible. The greatest danger of constant distractions and diversions is that it acts like a sedative. It deadens us to the problem and also to the cure. It may numb the pain, but it also makes hope elusive. You see, escaping in an infinite sea of distractions may insulate us from life's greatest pains, but also it steals from us life's greatest joys. In the metropolis of information and technology, we may no longer experience the blackness of the night, but we can never see the beautiful brightness of the stars. Of course, it's not just that technology can hide from us our greatest needs. If we are not careful, it can also give us a false impression that our most significant problems can be solved easily and quickly. Author and cultural commentator Neil Postman once lamented that one of the dangers of the modern world is that we can be seduced into believing the utopian and childish idea that all problems have fast, simple, and technological solutions. To put it somewhat differently, the problem that we can solve through technology can make us forget problems that we can't solve through technology. However, a life that is lived in keeping with our most important spiritual ideals cannot afford to be hoodwinked into believing that our most spiritual needs can be met through technology alone. Number 3, technology encourages a life that is constructed around the center of self. One of the most seductive illusions of technology is that of effortless, absolute control over our own lives. In The Abolition of Man, C.S. Lewis writes, "For the wise men of old, the cardinal problem had been how to conform the soul to reality. Now, however, we have made the project of our lives learning how to subdue reality to the wishes of man through technology. Coupled with our dream of absolute control is the notion that you are at the center of the universe and that all things should be turned to your desires. At its worst, technology promotes a kind of infinite consumerism, the notion that we can have all that we want when we want it. We come to believe that it can give and give and give and never ask for anything back. Of course, this kind of mentality makes the highest human ideals, like notions like a life of service and self-giving love, impossible. As John Dyer insightfully observes, technology is the means by which we transform the world as it is into the world that we desire. What we often fail to notice is that it's not only the world that gets transformed by technology, we too are transformed. So in this brief time together, we have seen that technology, far from being a clear aid to a life lived in keeping with our highest ideals and values, can become a positive impediment. As we have noted, the undiscerning use of technology can lead to a life that is cut off from real experiences, endlessly distracted and tragically self-centered. I trust that you have been persuaded by the clear arguments that our use of power of technology must be undertaken with great vigilance and wisdom.